Hello there. Today we're going to be talking about the meaning of life. Yeah, I know, it's a pretty intimidating topic. After all, don't we live in a modern culture where people have finished asking the big questions? I mean, didn't we already decide that there is no meaning to life, so we might as well just sit back, relax, enjoy a football game, and die? Well, frankly, I'm not satisfied with that answer, as much as I enjoy a game of football. You know, since the creation of man, people have been wondering, why on earth am I here? And I think there's probably a pretty good reason out there if we just are not afraid to ask. So join me as we ask the big questions, and maybe, just maybe, we'll discover the meaning of life. Hi. So, the meaning of life, huh? Wow. Where do we even begin? You know, in today's culture, very, very unpopular topic. Most people don't want to talk about it. Or if they do, they'll say something like, I make the meaning of my own life. And I always find that funny, because it's like, the only people that need to find a meaning to their life are the people who probably have decided that they don't have one already. And that's the question, isn't it? Before we even come into this world, is there a meaning? I mean, a lot of people think they have the explanation as to, you know, how we got here. Either by creation, evolution, something like that. But that doesn't explain why. Why is more about an intent, a goal, a purpose. And it's great to know how, but it's much more important to know why. And so I think we're going to be exploring why in a lot more detail. Now, here's something I'd like you to think about. Why is it that in day-to-day things, simple things like driving a car or even a game of football, we typically expect people to follow the rules? You know, if everyone made up their own meanings and rules and laws regarding football, there would not be a game of football, would it? I mean, people would be running amok. It would be chaos, anarchy. Or how about on the road, right? If everyone got to pick how fast they went, which side of the road they could drive on, you can see things could get pretty messy pretty quickly. So we understand that in the particulars of life, we seem to require a structure of sorts, but when it comes to life in general, why is it that people think everything's up for grabs? I mean, let's take morality, for instance. If morality is subjective and up for grabs, then people who, and obviously extreme example, but someone who, like Adolf Hitler, who decides to kill millions and millions of people, you know, within the German society at the time, that was socially acceptable. And given subjective morality within the German state, it was completely okay, all right, maybe even good. But are we comfortable saying that? And if you are comfortable saying that, well, then you can never again say that anyone is right or wrong for anything they do. And that can be pretty dangerous, I would suggest. Certainly unpragmatic if you want to be able to say, you know, this is what we should be doing, this is what we should not be doing, and on YouTube in particular, I see a lot of people of various worldviews, you know, saying that this person did this person did that, they should have done this, they shouldn't have done that, or they should believe one way or they shouldn't believe another way. But how can we say that if everything is subjective? I mean, it seems that we do need something objective in order to qualify a standard. And a standard by which we all need to adhere to would be external to us and objective. And I think the people who most vehemently oppose objective morality and meaning are atheists. It seems to me that atheists are very inconsistent in their worldview and in the way that they live day to day. It's unpragmatic to be an atheist. You'll catch them making statements like, "You did well," or "You ought to have done otherwise," or "That was bad," or "That was good," or they'll even congratulate other atheists for being intelligent, and they will condescend down to people who disagree with them. The problem here is that within an atheistic worldview, which says the laws of nature are absolute and everything obeys them, and that there is no violations in the laws of nature, which would be a miracle. Remember, atheists don't believe in the supernatural, so they certainly don't believe that there are breaks in the laws of nature. They believe that our brains are obeying the laws of chemistry, and that the laws of chemistry dictates our thoughts and therefore our actions. It then follows that our beliefs could not be otherwise. It follows then that our actions and our behavior could not be otherwise. So to tell someone that they did good or bad, or that they ought to be otherwise, is impossible in an atheistic worldview. So there is nothing meritorious in anything we think or do within atheism. Neither is there anything condemnable or bad. And that's very dangerous. As soon as we say there is neither good or bad, suddenly people who kill people, or rape, or any number of atrocities, which we intuitively know are wrong, suddenly they're not wrong anymore. How can we say what is right or wrong when, since everything obeys the laws of nature, they could not be otherwise? We can only have freedom of choice, really, if our consciousness is not caused one way or the other by the laws of nature. It has to transcend the laws of nature entirely, which opens up theism, which opens up creationism, which opens up a world beyond the laws of nature. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with that, but in order to say that there is objective meaning, objective morality, freedom of choice, responsibility, any of these things, we need to open up an entire new way of thinking, a new worldview. And as a former atheist myself, that is what I commit to you. Everyone believes in right and wrong. Everyone believes they have a choice. Everyone believes that we ought to do good, and that we ought to be reasonable. There seems to be this commitment, this unspoken understanding that these things are real, that we truly do have a choice, that we are conscious beings that can alter our lives, that there is a choice, which flies right in the face of materialism, which says everything is dictated by the laws of nature and there is no escape. Which means our consciousness is actually a supernatural thing, something that is altering the laws of nature, that is moving our bodies in this materialistic world. But it is not quite materialistic. That is what we would call the soul. That's why people believe in the soul, because it's so unlike the materialistic world. After all, if our consciousness was just a brain, if our brain was equivalent to consciousness, it occurs to me that the brain is made of unconscious things. After all, the brain is made of fluids and electrons and atoms, but fluids, electrons, and atoms are not conscious. In fact, they're unconscious. And I don't see how configuring any amount of unconscious things could ever create consciousness, because there is nothing within any configuration of unconscious things. There is no consciousness there. So it seems there is something conscious that is using our brains, and that is who we really are, the immaterial self. So your brain can cease to function, but you'd still be alive. That's what we call the soul. You know, back when I used to be an atheist, I was stubborn, and I would think very, very little of people who believed in God. And I just want to encourage you, if you're an atheist out there, I know atheists are devoted, passionate, very intelligent people for the most part. And the best news that I ever found was that I was wrong. And in the next few videos, we're going to be attempting to persuade you of that truth. God bless.